Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kawabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2 is now out. If you're interested in learning more about some of the most bizarre, strange, and even terrifying crimes that have taken place in Japan over the last few decades, then make sure to grab your copy now. You can find 25 new cases of missing persons, unsolved mysteries, and truly bizarre crimes that still confuse people today. That's Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2, out now. This week, we're heading indoors for a variety of spooky, haunted, and abandoned buildings. What will you find in their empty interiors? Are they truly as empty as they seem? What about those buildings that look perfectly normal and yet are anything but? First up, a group of boys find an abandoned building after one of them moves to a new area, but they're not the only ones exploring it. A mysterious kid on the roof catches their eye, but they struggle to find a way up there. And perhaps that's for the best. Find out why in Hanya Mask. When I was in the 5th grade, we moved from the house we'd been renting up until that point to our own house. I didn't have to change schools, but the area we moved to was now the max distance away from the school in the same district. The area was originally dotted with orchards, but as the number of workers in the area increased, it started to turn into a commuter town. As such, it was a chaotic mix of the old and the new, with brand new asphalt and divisions of new houses being built alongside old wooden family homes. For many of my classmates, this was unknown territory, so when I moved, they took it as a good opportunity to start exploring. Construction was underway on a massive 4-lane highway near my house, and the bypass was on the border of the B Elementary School district. The side of the road was full of dense shrubbery and animal paths, and once you passed through there was this massive, creepy abandoned building. At a glance, it looked to be over 50 years old, and it was a sturdy 2-story building made of reinforced concrete. It was almost the size of 2 school gyms put together and kind of looked like a former hospital. The entrance and first-floor windows were all boarded shut, of course, but there's not a single boy on the planet who wouldn't be overcome with curiosity seeing that. "Let's check it out," someone said, and so we decided to do a lap of the outside first. We walked along the outer wall, but weeds, spider webs, and countless bugs made it hard to follow. Not only that, but rotten wooden pallets, large drums, pails, and other rubbish littered the area, and some of those contained some unidentifiable sludge in them. By this point, the sun was setting in the west, so we decided to call it a day and come back for more on Sunday. We got on our bikes and, as we were about to leave, I sensed someone behind me. I turned to look at the abandoned building, and there was a boy around our age on the roof. He was leaning against the fence and waving at us. With the setting sun behind him, it was hard to see his face, but I guessed he was probably a student from B Elementary School. We went to a small school, so I knew the names and faces of all the kids, not just in my grade, but the ones above and below too. Judging by his height, he had to be in the 4th to 6th grade, but nobody knew who he was. That was why we thought he had to be from B Elementary. "Can you reach the roof?" someone asked. "You can. Come on up," the boy replied. how do we get in? Go all the way around there, and there's a ladder. The boy pointed to the area we had explored just before, and then turned back from. I wanted to see whether it was true, but I was also suspicious, so we gave up and went home instead. On Sunday, we gathered after breakfast and made our way to the abandoned building again. When we got there, some other kids were already running around. At a glance, they seemed to be from B Elementary, and then they noticed us as well. If this were a park or a game center or something, we'd no doubt get into a territorial scuffle. Apparently, some boys from the baseball and soccer teams of both schools were always fighting, but this particular spot sat between both schools, so it didn't really belong to either. As such, when we realized we were all there for the same thing, we quickly hit it off. Like me, one of them had just moved in nearby and found it while exploring. Then, one of the boys from B Elementary said something odd. The other day, I saw a student from A Elementary waving at us from the roof. When we asked how they knew the boy was from our school, they used the same reason I had. Nobody from B Elementary knew who it was. With the backlighting, they couldn't see his face, but judging by his height, he was probably in the upper grades of elementary school. It was all the same as when I saw that boy. Well, actually, I told them my story and how I thought it was someone from their school. If not, then it had to be someone from the more distant C and D elementary schools. But the chance of that was low. It's normal for boys to instinctively act calm in areas that aren't their own territory. It was hard to imagine an outsider traveling on the bus all this way to climb on the roof and then wave at us. At any rate, we made an impromptu joined forces of both A and B elementary schools, and we agreed to go up to the roof. I went in the opposite direction to what the boy said last time, and next to the building was a pump room. I won't go into detail, but we were able to get into the building through there. The building was completely empty, and there was pretty much nothing inside, so we still weren't sure what the building was originally used for. But we still thought it had to be a hospital. The first floor was a bit of a mess, but it still seemed usable with a bit of cleaning. The problem was the second floor. The hall leading to the roof was pitch black, and a smell of smoke hung in the air. The steel door leading to the roof had warped from heat, and no matter how much we pushed or pulled, it wouldn't budge. Well, this is our first time inside, so let's check everything and see if we can't find another way up there. And so we walked around the building, but I couldn't help but think of something else entirely. We should come back in a few days with just us kids from A Elementary. It was like, whoever can make it to the rooftop first will be the winners. Boys will be boys, after all, and it was perhaps an unwritten rule that whoever made it to the top would be the undisputed boss. And that boy we saw on the roof wasn't from B Elementary. We didn't know where he was from, but either way, we had to beat them to it and get there first. And just as we reached that conclusion, no doubt the boys from B Elementary did as well. A few days later, we made our way over to the building after classes ended. It didn't seem like the kids from B Elementary were there yet. According to that boy, if we made our way past all the debris outside and kept following the building, we'd find a ladder that would lead us to the roof. However, the ladder attached to the building was only around 20 millimeters thick and red with rust. It didn't seem to be well attached to the wall, and no matter how you looked at it, there was no way it could support even a single child. Even from a distance, we knew it was no good. We had to find another way up, but as we searched the building once again, we still didn't turn up anything new. As the setting sun was painting the building red and we were getting ready to leave, that boy appeared on the roof again. How on earth did he get up there? Did he just climb the ladder without making any noise while we were inside? "Come on up, guys!" The sun was behind him, just like the first time we saw him, so we still couldn't see his face, but it appeared to be the same boy. "What school are you from?" He said nothing. "Where are you from?" Again, he said nothing. Then, after a few more seconds of silence, he responded, "Come up here, and I'll tell you." But still, if I didn't get home soon, my scary mother would be waiting for me. Once again, we failed our mission and left. At this point, we reached a tentative hypothesis. That boy always appeared as the sun was setting, and as such, we should get there before him and watch to see what he did. And so, we agreed to meet the following Sunday after eating lunch. Around 2 p.m. the next Sunday, we gathered at the abandoned building. A few of the kids from B Elementary were there too. They said they had something they wanted to tell us, and they figured if they came here, they might find us. Then, with strange looks on their faces, they began. As expected, the boys from B Elementary were also trying to reach the roof first. They went on a different weekday to us, and then something bad happened. The boy appeared on the roof at sunset, and X-Kun followed him up the ladder as instructed. But on the way up, the ladder broke and he fell. Luckily, he got away with just some light bruising, but he still had to take a few days off school, and his teacher and parents got really angry at him. According to X-Kun, right after he fell, he looked up in pain and for the first time saw that boy's face. Normally we were looking at him from the east, so we couldn't see his face because of the light in the background. But this time he was looking at him from the west. And he claimed that boy didn't look like a boy at all. His expression was so full of rage that he looked just like a Hanya mask. And as he looked down at X-Kun, he muttered in a beastly voice, "How unfortunate." The other boys were worried about him, so they were only looking at X-Kun and didn't see the boy on the roof. I thought maybe they were lying to keep us from reaching the roof, but when I looked over at the ladder, it was indeed missing some rungs now. He was lucky that there were only weeds beneath the ladder and not the other debris. Otherwise, it would have all been over. After that, we didn't really explore abandoned buildings anymore. And before we knew it, the area had fully developed into a regular residential town. When I started junior high, some of my classmates were those kids from B Elementary, including X-Kun. Apparently, after that day, he alone started experiencing something strange. It wasn't that big of a deal, but by the time we started junior high, that old building was gone and replaced with a regular house. When he sometimes passed it, he said, he occasionally saw a Hanya mask floating in the air above it. However, because there's now no way up there, the face looks troubled that it can no longer ask people to come up. Next up, a writer visits a hospital for a job, but while there, gets wrapped up in something unexplainable. Something, it seems, has happened to other people before. But why? And how can you escape it? Find out in Trapped. I'm a magazine writer. It's not like I'm super famous or anything. I make enough to live, and that's about it. But while involved in occult-related work, I've experienced some strange things myself. This happened when I visited a university hospital in Tokyo to write an article. This particular job wasn't for anything occultish though. It was simply for a health magazine. I interviewed one of the doctors in the meeting room from 1:30 to 2:30, and then, after having a quick chat with him, left the meeting room at 3 p.m. This hospital was built on the slope of a mountain, and it was split into the old building and the new building. It's a little hard to understand, but because it was built on a slope, the floors weren't all on the same level. Well, anyway, I was able to get there easily, so I didn't think leaving would be difficult either. I'm not sure how long I walked for, but I must have been walking for a long, long time, because I couldn't find the exit. My car was in the parking lot of the old building, so I wanted to leave through that exit, but I just couldn't find it anywhere. Suddenly, I looked at my watch and I'd been walking for 40 minutes. That's weird, I thought. There was no way I'd been walking for that long. As I was walking, I sensed a presence behind me. It was a young nurse. She was pushing an empty wheelchair around the corner. By that point, I didn't care how I got out. I just wanted to leave. As long as I could get outside, I'd be fine. And so I started walking again. It was around 5 p.m. by the time I realized something wasn't right. That whole time, I hadn't seen anyone else. It was a weekday, and this was a university hospital. They had an emergency outpatient ward as well as inpatient facilities. But this whole time, I hadn't seen anyone else. No, come to think of it, I felt like I had passed a few nurses, but maybe that's not the right way of putting it. I didn't pass them so much as I felt them pass behind me. Several? No, that wasn't right. It was just that one nurse. How did I know that? She was young, and each time she was pushing that empty wheelchair. The very next moment, a chill ran down my spine. That wheelchair was behind me again. Nervously, I turned around, and about a meter away, that young nurse was pushing the empty wheelchair. And she was coming straight for me. There was no expression on her face, and she didn't even seem to see me. She's gonna hit me, I thought. But then, the nurse and the wheelchair went right through me and turned the corner. I was so shocked that I started running down the hall in the opposite direction of where I was going. I didn't care. I just ran. Before long, I found myself in front of that meeting room from earlier. Relieved, I took out a cigarette and took a quick break in the emergency stairwell next to it. Then, when I started walking again, I quickly found the exit. It was 5:56 p.m. It was such a strange experience. When I got home that night, I got some documents and a request from my publisher. Amongst them was a story from a female manga artist about something she personally experienced. She was in a taxi on a mountain in Kyoto, and they kept driving around and around, unable to reach her destination. But when she took out a cigarette, they were finally able to leave the maze that had trapped them. The documents mentioned that she didn't actually smoke, but she did carry one around for whenever things got weird. I wonder if cigarettes possess some strange power. The man in this next story tears down houses for a living, but when he's on the job one day, he comes across something in a house that, quite frankly, seems like it shouldn't even exist. Find out what in The House with a Strange Layout. I demolish houses for a living, and sometimes I come across houses with a strange layout. Like, sometimes a set of stairs continues all the way to the ceiling with nowhere else to go. Or there are hallways that end in a sudden dead end. It's not hard to imagine that these things happen while extending or renovating the house, however. Sometimes I even find small hidden rooms while I'm tearing a house down too. These are no doubt related to the owner's private hobbies. But recently, I came across a house that defied all logic. It was a one-story house that had apparently been left empty for quite some time. It was rather old, but not really old enough to call it abandoned just yet. I thought it would be a waste to tear it down, but the owner insisted he wanted all of it gone. Everything. We started tearing things down with the digger, and before long, we found a room that was about 6 tatami mats large. This entire room, other than the ceiling, was covered in porcelain tiles, so at first I thought it must have been the bathroom. But something about it was weird. There was a hole in the center of the room with a metal cover that appeared to be a drain, but it wasn't connected to a tub. In fact, there were no water pipes or plumbing at all, so it couldn't have been a bathroom. But even stranger still was that the room was made up of 4 walls without any doors or windows. There was no way in or out. How on earth did the person who laid the tiles get out? Well, maybe they built the walls backwards, if that makes any sense. But it was hard to imagine why anyone would go to that much trouble. Either way, something about the room felt off, so I tried not to think too much about it and finished tearing it down. When I was done, there was nothing left but some empty land. Every time I look at it now, that plot is still empty. I can't help but think that the owner knows what happened there, and if he builds there again, something terrible will happen, so he's afraid. When a boy stays with his aunt for a while, he notices a strange door in her house that he can't open or shut. And it turns out there's a very good reason for that. Find out why in The Stuck Door. My aunt ran an old catering store, and when my younger brother was born, I had to spend about a month there by myself. The store was always busy with grown-ups, so I spent a lot of time exploring the grounds. The front was the main house and storefront, and in the back you could find the kitchen and cellar. There was also a separate building that used to be a room for the employees, but now had been turned into a storehouse. This storehouse had a frosted glass sliding door that was slightly ajar, and inside I could see plates, bowls, and other such things. I tried to go in there once, but the door was heavier than it looked, and I couldn't open or close it. Before long, I became friends with one of the chefs, and I was curious about that door, so I asked him about it. "If you close it, then a ghost will appear," he said. In my childish mind, I thought he was just lying. But nothing much happened for the duration of my stay, and then I went home. Several years passed, and when I heard from my aunt that the store had closed, I asked her about that door and she gave me some more details. Long ago, their store used to go to the houses of those getting married and such to cook, and sometime after the war, one of the chefs hooked up with the bride-to-be. The head of the family and the bride-to-be's family discovered this, so the couple ended matters in the dressing room. After that, when people went into the room to clean it, they heard strange noises, saw a woman, and many of them felt sick, so they were unable to continue cleaning. They tried to demolish it, but the owner fell ill, so there was nothing they could do about it. And whenever someone closed the door, they could see a figure hanging behind the frosted glass, so they weren't even able to close it anymore. In the end, they hammered a few nails to make sure there was always a gap and the door was never closed. A few years after I left, my aunt trained her cousin to take over the store. He wanted to build a new kitchen out the back, so he tore down the storehouse. But then he suddenly fell ill, and 1 month later, he died. With nobody to keep the store running, it closed. They then cleared the land entirely and sold it to someone else. The cousin who died was that chef I had spoken to that time. I didn't even know about it, but apparently my parents went to his funeral. When I heard that, I was shocked. The man in this next story works part-time at a store that seems to be unlucky. He doesn't quite understand it himself, but it seems the higher-ups that work there all tend to meet a grisly fate. Find out why in Unlucky Store. This isn't a story about ghosts or curses or anything like that, but it actually happened to me a few years ago. I'm bored, so let me write it down. Several years ago, I visited the underground food court of a well-known department store and started work at one of the stores there. It was the type of store that sold traditional Japanese confectionery through sales demos. I worked there for about 6 months, but for certain reasons I had to leave and start work somewhere else. However, I needed money for my upcoming wedding, so I ended up going back there and working 2 jobs at the same time. I worked there from September until March of the following year. I contacted them around the end of the year and started working there again. I asked one of the employees how the shop manager was doing, and he said, "He passed away." About 2 months before I contacted the store, which was the busy season where I lived, the shop manager said to the employee, "I just can't get rid of this exhausted feeling." "We have been busy non-stop recently. Why don't you see a doctor on your next day off?" the employee said. Everyone thought he was just tired, but after seeing the doctor, it turned out he had acute leukemia. He was hospitalized right away, but he passed away 2 weeks later. When I contacted the store, only 3 weeks had passed since his death. They were grateful to have me because they didn't have enough workers, but in the end, the store itself closed a few weeks later. I think the direct reason was a dramatic drop in sales, and it was also impossible to rebuild there. Supposing that were the end of the story, well, it wouldn't really be worth talking about. But here's where it really gets going. That shop manager who passed away, turned out he was the 3rd one to die while working there. That shop was there for 7 or 8 years. During that time, 3 people died. If they all died by their own hands, well, It's unfortunate, of course, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, maybe they were under a lot of pressure from the head office or something. But all three of them died suddenly. The first one died suddenly from a cerebral hemorrhage, or something to do with the brain. The second died in a car accident. Or maybe it was the other way around. And the third was the manager I knew. All three of them weren't exactly young, but they weren't terribly old either. One of these managers, I don't know which one, also had a representative working for him. And that person, well, apparently he was involved in an accident as well. He didn't die, but his face was badly injured. Like, badly enough that he couldn't really work in the busy basement of the department store, dealing with customers anymore. I heard about all of this from some of the part-timers who had been there for a while, and an acquaintance from a neighbouring shop, as well as some other people I knew. Considering the nature of what happened, I don't think any of them were lying or joking. There's another shop now where that old one once stood. It seems to be running business as usual. I don't know if it was some sort of curse, but I certainly never felt anything strange while I was working there. Even now, I still have no idea how or why all that happened. This next story features a delivery man who notices something rather odd at an apartment building he regularly delivers to. There's a resident there who always seems to know when he's about to arrive, even though he never comes at a set time. What's really going on? Find out in The Resident of 608. A while ago I used to work as a delivery man, and this is about a strange customer I had at a certain apartment building. First, let me explain the layout of this building. It was probably built around 20 years prior, so it wasn't new, nor was it particularly old. It was 11 stories high, with the first floor being the parking lot for residents and contractors. Floors 2 to 11 had 12 apartments each, with an elevator and stairs on both sides. There was no automatic door lock system. And this customer lived in apartment 8 on the 6th floor, so room 608. I made deliveries there 2 or 3 times a week, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. There was no set time, just any time between those hours. I parked in the parking lot on the 1st floor, then I took the elevator to the 6th floor. Inside the elevator was one of those small round security cameras. The elevator hall was rather spacious, and from room 601 I walked to 608. However, when I was just passing room 606, the resident of 608 would step outside. "Ah, sorry for always making you carry such heavy things all the way up here," he would say. At first I thought it was just a coincidence and little else, but this happened every single time I went there. He always stepped outside as I reached room 606. He would smile, but I always got chills and goosebumps. The front door didn't face the passage, but rather was around 1 meter back. Like, even if you opened the door, it wouldn't block the passage, you know? So I don't think you could even see the passage from the door's peephole. It just didn't sit right with me, so I tried all sorts of different things. I tried going there from the other elevator, but as soon as I reached room 610, he came outside. Maybe he was watching me through the security camera in the elevator. I tried the stairs instead, but the result was the same. Was it my footsteps? I tried not making any noise, but still, it was the same. I watched for a while from the elevator hall, but he didn't come outside. I went to room 708 above and looked down, but still he didn't come outside. The delivery times were always random, so you would think that at least once he would have been cleaning, in the toilet, maybe even sleeping. But I never got to ring that doorbell to his apartment even once. The boy in this next story is playing tag with his cousin in his grandmother's house one day when it seems he encounters something odd. Something that still doesn't make any sense. Was something in the house trying to get him? Find out in Inner Room. When I was a child, I often played in the inner room of my grandmother's house when I went to visit her. It was huge and empty, and because it wasn't used for guests either, it was the perfect place to play. One day, one of my cousins who was a little older than me was also there, and we played together. I borrowed some hand towels from my grandmother, and we used them as blindfolds to play blind tag. After playing rock, scissors, paper, it was decided that I would be it first. Being unable to see anything, I was a little scared and nervous, so I listened keenly for any sounds. "Hey, this way! Come towards the sound of my clapping!" With my hands out, I moved towards the sound of my cousin's voice. Both of us were laughing. But before long, something didn't feel right. Was that laughter my cousin's, my own, or someone else's? There was this mixture of sensations, but either way, it was weird. My cousin's voice sounded close, but also far away. Either way, I kept moving towards it, but then, suddenly, something cold touched my leg. I couldn't move. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. It was like I was in a dream. Next thing I knew, someone grabbed my hand. "Hey, is that you?" I called out my cousin's name, but all I heard was laughter right by my ear. It was a high-pitched female voice. "Hey, this way! Come towards the sound of my clapping!" The person laughing sounded like they were having a lot of fun. I could no longer move my own body. "Hey!" Suddenly, I heard my cousin call my name and someone removed my blindfold. "What are you doing? Are you playing hide and seek instead now?" He laughed. It seemed I was now in the closet. I started sweating profusely and burst into tears. I had no idea what was going on. As we were playing, my cousin's mother called him for something, so he apparently told me to wait. I was spinning around in the middle of the room, however, and didn't answer him, but he figured I'd be okay like that and he'd quickly return after he left. If my cousin had returned any later than that, what on earth would have happened to me? And when my grandmother heard I was in the closet, she was shocked. "How on earth did you manage to open that stubborn door? You're even stronger than I am," she laughed. I was just a kid, so my grandmother was definitely stronger than me, but it seemed it was hard for even her to open that door. And not only that, I was in the upper part of the closet. There was no way I would have been able to climb up there myself at the time. I still don't know what happened or what was going to happen after that. The inner room of my grandmother's house is cool and dark, and even now, I still don't like it. The workers in this next story have a shared snack area where they find some delicious rusks. But it seems nobody knows where they came from, and When they look up the store, things get even weirder. Find out why in Rusks. A few years ago, the place I worked at was basically a 24-hour shift job. Other than naps, we didn't really get proper breaks, so when we were free, there was a corner where we could get coffee and snacks and such. Each person brought something, and then they were put out so people could take whatever they wanted, when they wanted. Anyway, there were some rusks there that were absolutely delicious, so I asked around to see who had brought them, but it appeared nobody knew. Maybe they were a gift from someone. But again, nobody knew anything about them. Oh well, they're delicious. That's all that matters. We all ate them and they soon disappeared. We agreed that we should get some more with the money we pulled together for snacks, so we looked up the store from the packaging on the internet. But we didn't get any hits. In the end, we decided to visit the address on the packaging directly. When we finished work, I had the next day off, so I drove there with another colleague to this place that was about an hour away. When we got there, the area was still being developed, and most of the land was empty. We asked at a nearby shop about the rusks, but they said no such store existed nearby. Maybe they had to close because of the redevelopment taking place, we decided, and then left. About 6 months later, I was passing that same area again, and I saw a store that had the same name. Thinking that maybe they had moved temporarily, I asked the staff member where they had been operating until now, but he said that they were a brand new store that had just opened. They didn't even have any sister stores. So then, what on earth did we eat 6 months prior? Finally this week, a young boy goes with his uncle to visit the old building he's renovating. But while there, the workers discover a hidden space behind the walls. What's the space for and what's still inside it? Find out in Secret Space. This happened when I was a child. My uncle bought an old building. As they were doing construction work on the interior, he took me with him to check it out one day. This building was actually quite small and, by the look of it, was probably 20 or so years old. Seemed they were doing some pretty large renovations on it, and when we went, quite a few workers or engineers or something were working busily. It looked interesting, so I stayed near the door to keep out of their way and watched. Someone who was working on some electrical stuff by the hallway wall then called out, "Huh? There's a strange space here." The workers all ran over to see. "Huh, so there is. What on earth is this?" They then opened a hole in the wall to check. I also looked, and it looked more like a double wall than a gap. In the end, they decided to tear the whole wall down. It took a bit of time, but my uncle, his friends and I were all curious, so we watched and waited. As expected, it was a double wall. It wasn't the entire length of the hall, but just one part of it, around 180 centimeters long. The depth of the gap was around 40 centimeters. It was a completely sealed space with no holes for ventilation. There were no shelves or anything, but there was something on the floor. Looking closer, it was a really small table or something, and on top of that was a rice bowl, chopsticks, and a teacup. There were also numerous sheets of paper covered in writing. "This must have been a closet they sealed shut," the workers said, and that was that. "Hey, get rid of that stuff," they instructed one of the younger workers. "Okay," he said, but the moment he grabbed the rice bowl, he screamed and threw it. "It's still soft," he muttered. The boss got angry at him, but the man's face went pale. "I mean, the rice in the bowl was still soft, like somebody was just eating it," he said. I don't really remember what happened after that. When we got home, my mother got angry at my uncle. "Construction sites are dangerous. Why on earth would you take a child there?" The fight they had after that was more scary than what I saw at the old building. A huge thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Just Sawn, Emerald, and Kenneth Kawamoto. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2, out on Amazon right now. And check out our merchandise store at kawabana-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kawabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kawabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KawabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kawabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kawabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kawabana.net now.